Okay, I'm gonna make sure we're good. We still got some time. It's still kind of loading. It's okay.
Okay.
It's still kind of loading. Okay. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Unlimited Edition Live. I am super excited to be with you. I'm Dr. D. Bell Williams, your global instructional coach, as well as global educator and school and community relations specialist. Thank you so much. I have an amazing guest on tonight, and we're going to be talking about something that is super important. As you all know, that we've all been at home and living through a global pandemic, and of course, those of you who know me, everything that I do, all the work that I do is relative to education. And so I thought it was important this month, as we pretty much end our school year, talking about the effects that COVID-19 has had on our schools and specifically our rural communities. So tonight I have none other than the Dr. Stephanie Hart with me on tonight. She is an assistant principal down in Orangeburg Consolidated Schools, and she is with us tonight to talk about some of the experiences that they've had down in the rural communities and share like some of the things that they've implemented to assist their students and their families during this time. So Stephanie, would you mind just introducing yourself to our audience? I know that there's some people who are watching who may know you, but of course there are others who may not be familiar with who you are.
Okay, hi. Thank you so much for having me. I am Stephanie Hart, and I do serve as an assistant principal at one of the high schools in Orangeburg County Schools, actually one of the charter schools there. And I have been in education a little over 20 years, served over from elementary to college. And matter of fact, I'm still a college professor as well. So, just absolutely love education, love working with children. And I grew up in a small rural town and just excited about my journey, excited to be working with kids, even in this time.
That's good. That's exciting. That is awesome. I love that perspective, how you ended that. That was like perfect because sometimes when we're challenged, it will really allow us to reflect on whether something that we're doing is really our passion. Mm-hmm. And you said it perfectly, like even during this time, you absolutely love working with children and with their families. So that's amazing. So thank you so much. I know Teacher Appreciation Week and Assistant Principals Day was, last week and a few weeks back, but still want to say thank you for the work that you are doing, that you've put in, that you will continue to put in. And of course, a celebration on over 20 years of education. That's a major milestone. And so we're hoping, and part of my job is to make sure that teachers understand that they can definitely make a career out of education if they just stick to it and understand the purpose behind what they're doing. So we're going to dig right in tonight with a couple of questions, just talking about specifically, what you do, at the particular school that you work at, and then, of course, discuss your experiences working in rural South Carolina schools and also urban, because I know that you've also had experience working in urban schools as well and kind of looking at the differences in those experiences. So tell us a little bit about what you do at your school and then compare the differences between the rural schools and the urban schools where you worked.
Okay. Well, basically now working where I am, I think in this school, as the assistant principal, I get to do a little bit of everything. And when I say that, that means I get to go in classrooms, and if I have to co-teach, I co-teach because teaching is my love. So when I walk into a math classroom, I'm always super excited, and my freshmen can tell. They're like, "Oh, Dr. Hart, you would teach today?" So what are you doing? So I get to do that, and I get to help teachers I think it's important to build relationships. And when you're working in the smaller schools, in our rural schools, versus when I worked in the urban school, relationships came a lot easier this year. Even though we came in as a new admin team, building those relationships, that's vital.
Okay.
Relationships are vital in order for you to help create the culture that you're looking for.
Right.
Without relationships, you can have a vision, but you need people to help bring that vision to pass.
Absolutely.
And so that was one of the important things that I focused on this year. Also got to serve as testing coordinator. So that was totally new. And testing can be strenuous. It's stressful, but I learned a lot. So this year was a great learning year for me. Had the opportunity to serve in the absence of my principal. She had an unfortunate accident one day on her way to work, and I got the opportunity my first year to just kind of step in and make sure we kept rolling. So those are one of the things that is different from. That's one of the things that's different working in an urban school and a rural school. As far as the students, there might be more of them when I worked in the urban community. However, students, all they want to know is that you care. So we saw a lot of the same things, but then there were some differences because they were exposed to a lot more. Especially when you're part of a larger school district, they tend to have a lot more resources, and have the capability to get those resources versus working in the rural school. But one thing I can say about the team that I work with, whatever we had, we made it work. I mean, it was a dynamic team, and it's a dynamic team to be a part of. So that made me super excited. Thus far, we've had a great year in spite of all the challenges that we've faced. But those are some of the major differences I see. But the biggest similarity is they all want to know you care. They want to know that teachers care about them. And that's been very important. And I've seen that coming from where I am.
I appreciate that. Before I go on, I do want to let the audience know there are a few people who are posting questions. Definitely feel free, if you're watching, to post questions or to give comments and feedback during this live. We welcome that. Of course, we welcome you to share it, start a watch party, because this is some amazing information. Yeah. And so there are a few questions, and I see Ms. Rivers. She actually has a question out here, and I'll get to it in a second. So Ms. Rivers, we do see you, and I'll make sure that your question gets answered. But I definitely want to just kind of reiterate a couple of things that you shared. This is kind of building the foundation of what we're talking about when we shift into the specifics of COVID-19 and its effect on our schools, specifically the rural schools. And I love what you said about the bottom line. When you were in a rural school versus while you're in the rural school versus looking at when you were in an urban school, the need from the students and their families is typically the same. They want to know that you care, bottom line, and that's, such a strong tool. And it's something, that I really harp upon when I do lots of training, lots of seminars, is talking about the aspect of the students building relationships, like building those relationships with those students so that when we are in a crisis or if something happens, that the students trust that you're going to help them get across this hurdle, and the parents trust that you're going to help their child get across this hurdle. So I think that is prime. So if you're watching, like we're already digging into discussion and digging into the discussion and talking about like the effects of COVID-19 on rural communities. And the first question I asked Dr. Hart was, what were some of the differences that she's experienced working in rural schools versus urban, because she has that background in both. And of course, she mentioned, sometimes being in an urban area, you have a little bit more exposure to different things. And I would add to that, we shared this last week when I was talking to our guest last week, and even being in an urban area, you may have access to it, but do you have the luxury of means to actually take advantage of it? So that's another thing too, that even in the urban area where, you know, they may have access to the state museum if it's Columbia, South Carolina, or if they're in Greenville, you know, they may have access to it, but do they have the luxury to take advantage of it is the next thing. And so they still sort of sometimes experience a deficit, you know, in those experiences. So moving on, we're going to talk about COVID-19 and specifically, you know, how it's affected the area where you're teaching, and, you know, what are some of the things that your school has done. So as an administrator, you really covered a lot about your experience from this school year. And you've met the challenge, obviously, and you've done it in excellence, because to go from stepping in as the AP to having really to take over as the principal, to stepping into the classrooms, to whatever it is that you needed to do, you really met the challenges based on what you shared. So since COVID-19, how has this affected your school environment, and what have you all done to, you know, meet those challenges as an overall school?
Well, when we first got wind of what was going on, that, you know, the coronavirus was here, okay, we decided as a school that we needed to go ahead. Let's put something in place, because it looks like we're probably going to end up being home. So we started building our online curriculums for our students. Our district uses the program, and we made sure that all teachers enrolled every student in this program just to get ready. And it happened so quickly, they were able to just roll right into it. And a lot of our teachers they're tech savvy, and they use different platforms already. So it was easy for a lot of them. But the one thing I can say, a lot of my other teachers, you know, we do have still traditional teachers in our schools, which is great because it worked for me. It worked for me. So we still have the different types of teaching styles, but I can say they rose to the occasion. We made sure that we had PDs within our school for teachers who were not used to using those platforms, using the digital platform. Each kid in our school, we have one-to-one. We're an Apple school. So all of our kids have iPads already. So that was another thing that helped us, and just making sure. And if there was a student who did not have an iPad, we made sure you came in and you got one. We also made sure that the students had Google Classroom set up. We made sure we signed up for our Zooms. And then we decided as an admin team to sit down and really look at our teachers' schedules.
Oh, that's good.
And our teachers' schedules.
That's good.
We scheduled office hours for each teacher so that it wouldn't overlap. So that the students would get to log into an actual classroom twice a week. Mm-hmm. So every week you were going to see your teacher online. And we did it by departments. We had our math and science on a day, and our English and social studies on another day. And then our Fridays, we held for related arts. So we looked at the schedules and we scheduled those hours like that. And each teacher comes on Zoom and like they're teaching. So it didn't stop. Teaching, learning didn't stop. It was our goal to make sure that they kept learning and that we kept building on those skills, because we looked at the fact that, okay, we know there's going to be a gap. Mm-hmm. And, you know, so we have to make sure we do everything possible to give them everything that we possibly can. And I got to tell you that they have been doing an outstanding job of making sure that they're on those Zooms. So then we looked at our absentee rate, because, of course, with them being out of school, they're actually being marked present. Mm-hmm. But if you have not been signing in to those Zooms and turning in your assignments, the first thing we looked at, okay, let's just make sure they're okay.
Right.
So the thing was to make sure that our kids were okay. And I have to give kudos to our superintendent, our interim superintendent. He said to make sure your kids are good. So that was just an extra push. So we went on and we developed Google Classrooms for each grade level. So not only do they have a Google Classroom for their teachers as their platform, we have them for grade levels. So when we want to have a grade level meeting, we say meet us in the room, and they can log on. All juniors log in the classroom, all seniors, and we have a meeting. We say we just want to check on y'all. How you doing? Is everybody okay? And we even offered free services to our families, to our parents. Like, we have a social worker who's on standby who offered her services for free. A psychologist offered free services because I said it's taking a toll on some of our faculty, on some of our students. We just want you to be okay and know that we're here to support you. We're in this thing together.
Absolutely. I love that. One of the things that stood out to me from the very beginning that you said is that as much as possible, you all were proactive. Like, once you heard about COVID-19 and once you heard the possibility of school closings, you all as a staff and as a faculty and admin, you all came together and decided, hey, if this is something our children are going to experience, it looks like it's headed in that direction, we're going to go ahead and map out a plan to ensure that they have the items that they need. And I love that because you didn't wait until the avalanche hit. You literally, you saw, the snow in the sky and the dust in the air. Everything was like, okay, these are our clues that this is actually getting ready to happen. We are getting ready to experience something that we have never experienced before. And I want you to tell me, roughly, you don't have to have the specifics. And if you're watching and you know the specific data, it's fine. We just want to just kind of give everybody who's watching, who's not familiar with the Orangeburg County area, just a little bit of a scope, like where she works now. She gave a lot of different tools that they use, but tell us a little bit about the demographics of Orangeburg County and some, like the demographics and the socioeconomic statuses of the children that you serve.
Not specifics, but we do have several of our schools are Title I schools. Not all of them, but I can say the majority of our schools are. And the one thing also, again, this year, we consolidated. So we came into a consolidation this year as well. So that was 3. We got Orangeburg 4, Orangeburg 5, and 3. So all of that came together this year. So we were still working on a lot of different things, making sure that we blend well, making sure that we get to a place where we develop systems. So, because I'm a believer in systems
Same.
work. I believe in systems. Systems work.
Same. I think it comes from our background, Stephanie. We were raised a certain way, especially because we both have like that ministry church background as well. So we believe in systems.
Yes, it works. So, all of that, trying to get all of that to jail. So we're looking at even one of the larger high schools, our graduating classes are far behind as far as numbers. So we're looking at a total of maybe 150 per graduating class. And then, of course, ours isn't quite that large, but it's right on the cusp of being that large. And then we look at the numbers of people who were the decline in our COVID-19 cases. And we were just, we were getting word about our kids overall. So the thing was to make sure that they were safe. And we just continued to work the systems that we had in place.
I love that. And I think that's something, if you're watching and you are at a school and your process was not as smooth, I think that listening to what Dr. Hart is saying is also just good to hear so that you can take back to your respective schools. And I talk about this nugget also in my book, Culture Focused Teaching. And I talk about teachers being problem solvers. So instead of saying, oh, we can't, or, oh, this is not happening, or this is not functioning, I encourage teachers to be investigators and discover ways in which something can work for the body of students that you serve, and then bring solutions to your administrative team. Because of course, with their roles, there are, so many different parts of what they have to do, so that when you come with a problem, also come with a solution. So as you're watching this and you struggled in your schools, or that you've known of some educators who struggle, listening to Dr. Hart should, give you some different techniques that you can take back to your respective leaders, to your respective school districts. So, that's the point of the discussion and the conversation, is so that we can share like what is working. And it's going to be a perfect segue into my next question. And I see you guys, commenting. Like I said, we're going to answer some of these questions and comments, towards the end. So I see you guys out there. Thank you so much for joining us. Stephanie, I read an article and I shared it with you, for the state. It was shocking to me. For some other people, it may not have been a big deal, but for me, I was taken aback a little bit. It was an article that said nearly 30,000 of South Carolina students, which is about 5% of the population of our students, teachers and school administrators had not heard from them via online platforms or whatever their sources of communication was, since the students were released from the physical building in March. And that came out last week. That was like May 6th or May 4th or something. And I was like, it's May. Like, I was like, are the children okay? And I know that a lot of schools have been trying to get assignments out to the students so that their grades can stay, consistent. We have graduation coming up and just a litany of things. But my focus was, are the children okay? And so could you tell us a little bit about, when you read that article, how did it affect you? And then tell us what you all did to make sure that you were intentional in not losing communication with your students.
When I read the article and I saw those numbers, I was like you. I was like, wow.
Right.
That was a lot.
Right.
That took me back to making sure that the kids were okay. One thing we did, and we have, like I said, a dynamic admin team, and we have a young lady who's great with logistics. So she creates forms, she gets it. I can say, hey, I can see the vision. I might can write it out, but she can make a form and she can make it work. So that's what she did. And we put that information out there, and then we have our teachers to check in. At the end of the week, we need to know who you haven't heard from. Right. So that's how we begin to build our database. Then we begin to call every student that somebody had not heard from. We condensed that list, we got it down, and we got it all the way down to 3 students. And then we put the other students on the prowl looking for these kids. I know y'all talking to them. Let them know your teacher looking for you. And I said, first tell them, not looking for you to get you in trouble, but we need to know you okay. Right. Your family okay. Is something happening? Because a lot of them were dealing with family who live in different places and had been affected by COVID-19. So, and then this was another thing. A lot of the students went from needing that extra help in person and not having it. So a lot of them kind of backed off from just going online because they didn't want to ask the questions or they didn't want to seem like they didn't know. Right. We found that out as we began to contact our students. So then what we did was, if our students didn't have Wi-Fi, we asked for hotspots. So we got hotspots for those students who didn't have Wi-Fi. Then for those students who had issues with just bearing with doing everything online, because we have to account for our different types of learners. So what we did was our teachers decided, okay, we'll do an hour after the hour. So that if you need an individual session, you send me a chat in the chat, and they do individual sessions. And they go above and beyond, because there are some students who were used to coming back to after school, who were used to coming back and getting that extra help at the end of the day. And so those students get that one-on-one via Zoom, but it's still just them and the teacher in there. So we had to make sure we create a safe place for all students because it is different. And I think that really helped. And then students, we sent out calls, we sent out emails. And then this is the kicker. When it was time to send home interims, I said, okay, we're going to send home certified letters for kids we have not heard from. So we need to get some signatures. I need to know you still at this address. If you get this certified letter, okay, then we can either have to come see you or we know you're there. So just please tell us you're okay. And we ended up sending home a letter. We sent home a letter to students we hadn't seen or heard from. Then we sent home a letter to every other student. And that letter included a thank you to parents because during Teacher Appreciation Week, we had to say, parents, thank you.
Right.
Teachers too. So we want them to know we appreciate them as well. But those are some of the things we did. We sent home certified letters. We made sure they had hotspots. We made sure if you didn't see them, okay, let's get your friends on it. Okay, y'all bring them on in. And it has worked.
That is awesome. And I've worked my way backwards too. When you talk about really utilizing the student relationships, that peer-to-peer relationships, but it also comes as an effect of the teacher having a relationship with the students to be able to say, hey, I know you're out there talking to this student, so make sure you let them know that we just want to know that they're okay. I absolutely love the certified letter idea because, like you said, it's like they gotta come out because it's you gotta have that it's documented. There's some other ramifications for those type things because as a school body, I know that educators, and I'm going to talk to you about this, and I know you have a big baby. Your baby is, in college, but there were educators who had children, K-12, small, high school, different age children at home. And of course, they had to make sure that their children were on track as well. And, so it may have proved difficult for, educators across the state to say, I just don't have the time, the means, or may not even thought of anything creative like sending certified letters or reaching out to another student because they were so, they had to kind of balance being parent and educator at the house. And I mean, like I said, I always will say this, teachers are superheroes because to be able to do that, thinking about, that pressure and just the balance of having to focus on, and especially if you're passionate. If you're a passionate educator, then your heart was definitely after your children that you did not hear from. But it may have been challenging for you to reach out or for your admin to reach out. But if you're listening and you have not thought about these things for your school, definitely take Dr. Hart's suggestions. I believe that they are free. We are out here on the World Wide Web. So they are free suggestions. Like find out if you can do certified letters to hear, from the families of these children. Put teams together, not only with the educators, but with the children that you are hearing from, who were in a friendship circle with those children, because that's how we specifically garner, it's a village mentality. And that's how we garner support for our children, especially those who may not have been in the best socioeconomical or psychological circumstance, because many children went to homes that they were not the best fit for, being at home during this time and trying to get work done. So I love the fact that you said that our initial contact was not about, oh, you got about 15 pages of work that you're missing. It was about, are you okay? Is everything okay? Still, even from a digital platform, educators are mandatory reporters. So there was, it was still an opportunity for if there was something that a child needed that you may have had to involve any legal measures, you were still mandatory reporting, which would have possibly helped that child. So that was my concern when I read that article. And so, of course, I wanted to speak with you and kind of have you talk about that from the admin side and what you did at your schools, because 30,000 students may not seem like a lot of children in a big state, but it's still somebody's child. And it's still, someone who's missing instruction, or they're missing the availability to grow to the next level. And that was alarming to me. as a consultant. And of course, I started thinking of ways of, how can I help, as a company, as an individual, with schools, because they did list specific school districts who, had larger numbers than others. And I'm grateful to hear that, your school district have just been phenomenal. It's amazing that you guys consolidated, and those of you who are watching, I'm a faith believer. My business is a faith business. Dr. Hart is a believer. And so we believe in the power of God and just his ways. And it's amazing that as a school district, they came together, and then here we are, not even a year later, or going into a year, and the school have resources that they can pair together coming from 3 different school districts during a pandemic. So I just thought, God is so sovereign that he knows exactly what we need when we need it. So Orangeburg has done a great job based on, Orangeburg County schools have done a great job with, assisting children, especially, being in a rural area, and every school within that, district is, pretty much from a rural environment. For those that are watching that don't know Stephanie and I, our background, we're from a rural school district, in Orangeburg County. And it was one of the reasons why I was led to have her as a guest, on the show, because one, we come from that background, and we understand that sometimes there are deficits, sometimes, and we know that there's a disparity gap. We know that there's, a digital divide, but I'm a solution oriented person. So I also wanted to talk about some things that we could possibly do to actually close that digital divide. And Stephanie, you've offered some amazing options that your school has done. And so, like I said, if you're listening, definitely take the advice. If you have, if you've missed something, and I know there are people who are coming in, if you've missed some of the nuggets that Dr. Hart shared about how to kind of close that digital gap when you're working in a rural school, go back and watch the replay. She shared some amazing nuggets. I'm going to go and move on to our next question, as we kind of, try to bring it to a close, so to speak. In school, it's particularly easy when you're in the classroom to help teachers understand the power of giving your students a voice. How would you say or share what are some things that you all have done from the digital spectrum of helping your students understand that their voices are still very, very important on the digital platform?
Now, by creating those Google Classrooms per grade level. So when we did that, we had every admin was on every call. So, and we have a grade level administrator for each grade level, and then the principal and I and the guidance, the school counselor, all of us was on this call. So this was a time for them to share, and we make that so that, okay, whatever's on your heart. That's what the principal said. Whatever's on your heart, you can share it during this time. So it was the grade level meetings, and we had our grade level advisors to join those calls as well, so that they could hear what the students had to say, and then we could compile that information and put it all together. But then I gotta say, when we first started, every teacher got a Google number, and it's published. So if you need to reach your teacher, you can text this number, you can call this number, and then we went, they have Google Classroom platforms. They can reach out to their teachers. They got their emails. We just make it, and we made them feel comfortable enough to reach out. And trust me, if they didn't reach out, our parents were definitely comfortable enough to reach out. I had a parent call me 7:00 on Saturday morning. Say, okay, I just can't do this. I can't get this. So I said, well, meet me at the school, and then we'll get you downloaded. We'll get everything downloaded for you. So we just make sure that I think the grade level Google Classrooms really create that safe space for them and give them that voice, because it was in those classrooms that our students really began to share. And one young lady, facing some opposition, and she was going through, and she was able to share, and I was able to get her to the right person so that she would feel empowered. The thing, we want to empower our students and definitely empower our teachers, and we try to make sure that they have that relationship If they come to us, the first thing well, what did your teacher say? Have you spoken with them? Making sure that we don't overstep,
Right.
because we still want them to be empowered in this digital platform, because they are the ones that are still delivering the information to our students. So again, that I think a Google Classroom grade level is a great idea to utilize if you haven't. Even offer some incentives. We put some incentives out there, and we probably have more kids to show up than normal. Give them an incentive. They'll come in and they want to, because they want to talk. They want to say, okay, this happened, or we had something to say, okay, this person passed away, or this, we made it that safe space. And today we're not talking about work. So when you come in this classroom, it's not about work, not the grade level. Grade level is about you.
That's good.
So
Man,
that's what the grade level classrooms are for. And then we utilize that platform to post messages that are grade level oriented. We use that platform for that.
that's really powerful, Dr. Hart. I've spoken with quite a few teachers and even administrators during this time, not just in South Carolina, literally all over the world, because it impacted classrooms globally.
Right.
And so I wanted to hear like what some of the things they were doing to try to make sure that children and families were still, being contacted and their voices were still being heard. Because as you shared, this was first time for everybody involved. And the most important aspect about what we do as educators is to ensure the safety of our children.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, that's, was one of the biggest concerns, like I said, when I read that article. And I love the idea of the Google classrooms, grade level classrooms, and the space being one where we're not talking about work today. This is about how are you doing?
Mm-hmm.
And which I love. I absolutely love. And it's really kind of stirring in me, because it's something that I talk about. Again, you're just kind of pulling out nuggets from, not the specific thing about the Google Hangout, but I do talk about it really from a classroom perspective, because the book was written prior, COVID-19. However, the nuggets are so applicable to COVID-19, because I'm talking about the importance of educators taking time, whether it's once a week or once a day, depending on grade level and the structure of the class, and just having that moment. I calling it on the carpet, where we just, sit and we talk about how are you before we break out, the 5-minute class starter, or before we break out the lesson. Is everybody doing okay? Like, and it's part of building that relationship, because of course, it's more than just about disseminating the information, to the child. It's definitely a big portion of it. That's how we, grade our students. That's how we know if they're mastering a skill. But a lot of times they cannot display mastery because they're suffering emotionally. Mm-hmm. And so it's definitely important to talk about how, that digital divide it could have caused that, and has caused that for a lot of our, rural areas. And like I said, thankfully, Orangeburg County has been doing a great job. And those who are watching and you're in a rural area, and like I said, you guys have not been doing, a good job, or you don't feel like you've been doing a good job, or you're suffering, or you're one of those schools that were, talked about in the article. And you can go out there and Google it. I'm not in the business of like outing those districts, but you can definitely go and read the article about those specific areas of South Carolina. And another thing that just I felt like it was so important to talk about, because it just adds to what's already a big gap in our education system in South Carolina. Of course, we've been talking for years about the corridor of shame. We've been talking for years about, the Constitution in South Carolina that says that it'll provide a minimally adequate education, like fighting those things from a systematic perspective. And then here we have COVID-19 that just kind of exploits more of the disparity and more of the gap. So I think it's super, super important to definitely continue to talk about. I'm going to go into some of the questions and comments here on our platform. And after that, then I'll kind of close us out with the last question. So if you see me looking down, guys, I'm looking at the questions and comments. Elizabeth Rivers, she said, Dr. Hart, what school are you working? Like, where are you working? She may have missed it.
Okay, I work at High School for Health Professions. in Orangeburg County.
So Ms. Rivers, that is where Dr. Hart works. And then we have a lot of people saying hello, excellent information. Yes, Dr. Walters says 30,000 is a lot by any standard. And I totally agree with Dr. Walters. I totally agree. It was a shocking number. Yeah, it's huge. And, I agree with you. And great educational information. We got a lot of home folk that are chiming in. Norway excellence by a lot of people, sharing great nuggets for school. So thank you guys so much. I didn't see any other questions. Hey, Dr. Hinton. Hey, cousin Barbara. Hey, cousin Emma Jeffers, Emma Dean. We got a lot of people out here. Quanda Hart. A lot of people out here watching. Dr. Walters, Craig Peoples. A lot of people, hello. We see you guys out there. I'm looking at several different screens, guys. So Renee, Rashandra, Janae, I'm sorry, not Renee, Rashandra, Janae, Eric Jones was saying hello. So as I close, and I think that Dr. Walters, to me, sets me up for this last closeout. Many of you all are watching. You may or may not know this information, but not only am I an educational consultant, but I'm also part of the SC Emerge 2020 class. And SC Emerge is a organization in Columbia. It's all female, and it's an organization that prepares Democratic women to run and win elections. So one of the things that, of course, if you don't realize by now, I'm passionate about is education. And though I work from a global platform, I always tell people there's no place like home. And when you are from an area where you see that it is challenged in areas, you want to do, what you can in order to help curtail those challenges so that the children here, the future of our state, can be in a better position. And so those 30,000 numbers alarmed me to the point where, Dr. Hart, what you're sharing is critical. And I know that Orangeburg County does serve statistically more students from the African-American background. And they also have a heavy Hispanic population as well. And of course, then, you can divvy up the numbers on down. But of course, anybody who knows me, I'm an advocate for African-American children, African-American families. And so as a person who works in education, Dr. Hart and I both coming from, an African-American background, my challenge also to educators and administrators who are watching is to, I would say, continue to explore options to bring in dynamics that help to understand the importance of African-American students, understanding more about who they are. A lot of times when we are hit with challenges such as a pandemic, when you are not strong in your identity or where you fit in society, then it can cause you to kind of fall through the cracks when things are happening. And so I always challenge, all my communities, even with my clients who are not Black, I always challenge them to explore what's happening in the socioeconomic statuses of your schools, like what's happening with the families of your schools. When I saw this article, it kind of fired me up because I know that statistically, and I could possibly be wrong, and I'm okay with that. But I believe statistically, from those numbers that were alarming, out of those 30,000, I'm willing to bet that a lot of those numbers are from the African-American community. And so it lets me know that it's going to be a deficit as we move forward into August, as we move forward, into the school year. So if you're watching, it is imperative that you share this information. This is not about Dr. Hart. It's not about myself. This is about the children of South Carolina. This is about the children who are in rural areas where they may be experiencing a digital divide that's really impacting and impairing their ability to learn. And so we want to make sure that there are nuggets out here, that there's information, research proven information, as Dr. Hart has shared, that it has worked for her school. So we want to give you something that works. And I'm all about giving you application materials. So if you're teaching in a predominantly African-American school district, and even if you're not African-American, make sure you are studying the statistical data that affects the culture so that you can bring in the appropriate materials that can truly aid and assist our children with moving forward. And so, of course, I alluded to some of the things that I'll be doing. So that's going to be a part of my fight in the future. So you guys are going to be hearing more from me regarding that. So I just kind of wanted to share that though I travel a lot, I'm always going somewhere, another state, another country. But my heart is to see our state climb from where it is, at the bottom, and really move its way up the educational spectrum in this country. Did you wanted to share anything, Dr. Hart?
I wanted to say, just to add on to what you're saying, right now is the time to start looking at those master schedules, because like you said, this gap in learning, there are going to be some classes that we're going to have to change, not just semester and make it year long, just so we can bridge that gap. Because especially my English classes, I like that literacy. We got to focus on literacy, because when our kids don't read well, they don't score well on anybody's test.
Correct.
So that's the thing. They got to be able to read, comprehend. And it's not just reading, it's comprehending and being able to regurgitate what they're reading. So we're looking at that master schedule. You might have to do some creative scheduling this year, because we've been faced with something, like you said, we've never faced before. So make that, start looking at those things now, so I can address, okay, yeah, I already know what my gaps and where my gaps are going to be. So start looking at that master schedule. That's one of the things we're doing. And if I have one other thing, and maybe just to say, is just show empathy to our babies right now.
So good.
Our situations change, but so many of them are in homes where everything changed. Not just the fact that they're not in school, but it could be their economic status, like you mentioned. Mom and dad may have been stylists, and it's a lot of that happened for us. So my thing was, I wanted my teachers, y'all still teach. Please teach, and we're going to hold them accountable. But you got to have empathy.
Absolutely.
If you got to have empathy, because things have just changed.
Absolutely.
And things have shifted. So that was one of the things I kept saying. Okay, I get it, but sometimes I might have to say, back off a little bit. Just back off. Just be empathetic.
And I thank you for sharing that, because I think it's impossible to really be effective as a teacher without compassion.
Okay.
You just cannot do this job without compassion.
Gotta have it.
You have to have it. And I know that we're human. And when we're enamored with systems and structures and paperwork and just trying to change, we sometimes can just get into this robotic mechanism of just trying to get things done. And I think that as we shift out of this last school year into the new, Dr. Hart says something very critical. You're going to have to be open to the shift and change of your classroom structure. You're going to have to be open to changing of the master schedule. Adjustments are coming. So go ahead and prepare yourselves now, because like I said, that number, that 30,000 number just really set me off and just took me to a place, because, that 30,000, once school opened back up, hopefully we'll get them back, into our schools. And one of the things that Dr. Hart alluded to earlier, that they didn't just deal with change and not being at school. Parents didn't have jobs because of COVID-19. People have other social emotional issues that they're struggling with, that sometimes, the children get the brunt of at home. So we're going to walk into August as a different body of people from every spectrum. Administrators, teachers, students, families, parents, social workers, everybody, school counselors, everybody is going to go in differently come August. COVID-19 has affected every area, every spectrum of life, every career, every industry. It has affected every part. So you got to have compassion, because it's going to allow you to be open to the changes that are coming down the pipe. Speaking of which, Dr. Hart, and while I still have you on here, I'm just going to pull up. You're going to see at the bottom of the screen where, of course, most of you all know that I just launched culture focused teaching, which talks all about relationships. It talks all about creating a culture of vulnerability, which is going to be huge in, coming into the new school year for this entire globe. It talks a lot about, building those relationships, not only with the students, but also with their families. If you are watching, you are at a school, and you believe that, this is information, Dr. Hart, we've been talking about it, you've heard some nuggets, that I've been sharing as we've been chiming in, I would invite you to go out to the website, www.culturefocusedteaching.com. Check out the resources out there. There is availability for admins, there's school licensure, there's so many different things. Stephanie, you were a part of my book giveaway. And I think that's someone that actually, she, one of the persons that you nominated won. And I know that everybody couldn't win. However, I shared this, on the line. There's a way that everybody can win. And that way is, reach out to your admins. Dr. Hart is an admin here. And so I'm certain that that young lady is going to get that book, read that book, share those nuggets. And if you're like Dr. she is excited. I'm excited to send it to her. And if you're, like Dr. Hart, you're an admin, or you're working, you're a lead teacher, or you're an educator on here, you're a teacher, and you're just like, I know that going into August, going into this new year, we're going to have to deal with a different set of students. Students have been out of school for almost 6 months by the time they come back in August. So you're going to have to restructure and really rebuild your classroom management techniques. There are going to be a lot of things that you're going to have to refocus your instructional techniques. And culture-focused teaching is an excellent model. And I'm not saying that because I wrote it. I'm saying that because that's what the reviews say. So it is an excellent model that you can use. So if you are watching, please share the information. You can go to the website. There's not only packages for individual teachers, Dr. Hart, there's packaging for the entire school district. They can purchase licensure. I have an e-course where the book has a course that walks along, with the teacher. It's a 5-week course, and they actually can take it at their own pace. And it just helps them build out a culture-focused classroom management plan. And that classroom management plan also includes instructional techniques as well. Because I'm a firm believer throughout my years of education is that if they're not behaving, you're not teaching them, because they're not. So so if you have not, created a plan, come August, I definitely encourage you to reach out to that website to get more information about how you can bring me to your school so that we can dive in and talk more. And I went real live on this this chat tonight about my passion and my purpose about African-American children, and looking at different cultures and how to approach them in the classroom. That is my passion that I bring to every seminar, every workshop. That's what you're going to get. I am authentic through and through. So you're definitely going to get that. And I think it's important for you guys to know that if you didn't read my, it was like a blog post that I shared earlier last week. And I talked about by 2024, I read the Educator Workforce Diversity Report that was rolled out by the United States Department of Education. And by 2024, only 4 years from now, majority of our public schools are going to have Black and brown children in it. However, only 18% of our teacher population is Black, and only 2 out of the 18% is Black male. And so I truly believe part of the culture-focused teaching is helping educators understand that there are different needs for different types of cultures. And you don't necessarily, it doesn't necessarily speak to the fact that just because you're Black, you will understand every plight of every Black child. Because within those different cultural constructs, you have those who are in different socioeconomic statuses, those who were raised in different backgrounds. So it doesn't necessarily mean because you're Black or African-American that you can identify with all Black children. And so there are different methods and techniques that I use in the text, and also I'll walk you through it in the e-course. It's a 5-week course, and there's so many other amazing tools out there. 52-week email, 3 to 5 minute segments that you teachers can use to implement right away. I mean, you can see changes in your classroom right away. So just wanted to share those things with you guys out there. Stephanie shared some amazing freebies. So we've given you guys some freebies tonight. And hopefully you can take those tools and apply that and look forward to a better, more productive school year as we move forward. But I will say, just like Dr. Hart, I believe it's an excellent way, is have compassion. Have compassion, have empathy, and be open to change, because change is already on the horizon. And so, Dr. Hart, thank you so very much for your time. Thank you for what you shared on this platform tonight. It has, I believe, definitely gone, not gone unnoticed. People have been sharing, commenting, and, just sharing the information as we prepare. My last question, you already covered it because you kind of went into it. So that was fine. But if you guys want to reach out to Dr. Hart, you of course can reach out to her through Facebook if you want to. I believe that you have some other social media handles that you frequent, so you can share with them if they want to reach out to you for anything.
You can reach out to me, like she said, on Facebook. On Twitter, I am Dr. Hart. That's my Twitter handle. I'm also on Instagram, but I don't do Instagram that much. So Twitter and Facebook are probably going to be the easiest ways to reach me. But all teachers, hold out, hold on. We're almost there. We're almost at the end of this semester, and you guys have done a great job of pushing through, and just keep on pushing. Don't stop. And the other night I had the privilege to be on a call with a group of women. And the one thing I told them, and as educators, if you truly believe in yourself, I'm going to tell you this, you were built for this. So just keep moving. You can do it. Keep on going. Hang on in there.
Absolutely. I second that. I second that motion. Thank you so much, Dr. Hart. Thank you to all our viewers. I'm going to double check one more time to ensure that, we've addressed everybody is information out here. I love it. Dr. Walters, you are all right with me. She was like, even if you're not an educator, stay woke. Like, that is exactly. And I'm about it. So awesome. Just a lot of thank yous. Dr. Hinton, he was a part of that, seeing that article, and we were in a group and there was some conversation about it. And so I think that this was an amazing discourse to if individuals, that were in that group or who were like-minded, that I think this is some information that they can definitely take with them and apply, if not only for the rest of the school year, but also for this upcoming new year and the years ahead that we have, here in at least the great state of South Carolina. And of course, if you're in any other state, any other country, and you're watching and there are struggles, from COVID-19 in your rural areas, definitely take a look at the replay. There were some amazing nuggets shared here. And we just thank you all for watching and sticking with us. Of course, you can find me here on Facebook. At D. Bell Williams is my personal Facebook page. Dr. D Unlimited is the business page. I'm on Instagram at Dr. D Unlimited. I'm also on LinkedIn, D. Bell Williams, and I'm also on Twitter at Dr. D Unlimited. So those are all of my handles if you're looking forward to me. But one of the greatest way to contact me is, of course, going to that website, www.culturefocusedteaching.com. There's some amazing things that we're rolling out there for you. And we'll be, sharing out some other things, Dr. Hart, maybe your school or, another school that you may be aware of that may need the resources that we'll be rolling out. As you all can imagine, we're still in social distancing. And I know that May 18, everything is kind of going to open back up. The governor made that announcement. And so with that being said, I still believe that people are going to practice social distancing as it relates to like conferences and seminars. But I would like to share this for those that are continually watching, and you're going to share it as well. A lot of professional development is also going to be a virtual platform as well. So, as we prepare to really get back to, going into August, many of our educators have not experienced professional development since January, maybe February, some since the last semester. So a lot of it is going to roll out, during the summer, a lot of professional development opportunities. So again, definitely check out culturefocusedteaching.com. I am a part of that professional development field. So, share the information. Dr. Hart, you've been amazing. I didn't expect anything less because I know you and I know that you are a wealth of information, but you're also a wealth of wisdom. And I wanted, to speak with someone and have someone on the platform who was not only full of information, but could offer wisdom, which provides people with inspiration that they can do it. It may seem hard, but there is a way. So that's what I wanted to do. So this has been our episode of the digital divide and how, COVID-19 has affected rural schools, in South Carolina and specifically all over the world. So thank you, Dr. Hart. It's been amazing.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. You're welcome. And we'll see you soon.
Okay.
Okay. Bye-bye.